This set of videos will address the book of Joshua, the story of the conquest and the partitioning of the land. First of all, the authorship of Joshua. We do not know who wrote the book of Joshua. The book of Joshua is named after the major character, Joshua, but it nowhere says that he had anything to do with writing the book. As far as the date, well, sometimes time after the time of Joshua. There's an expression that's repeated several times that something is true to this day. You'll find that a number of times in the book of Joshua, and that little expression, to this day, suggests that a considerable amount of time has passed since the day of Joshua when the book reached its final form. Again, the title is after the main character, Joshua. The name Joshua, Hebrew is Yahushua, means Yahweh is salvation. Might mention in that regard that Jesus is a shortened form of Joshua. In fact, in the book of Hebrews, the Greek for Jesus, Jesus, and the Greek for Joshua are the same form. The long form is Yahushua, Joshua, but then there's a short form of that, Yeshua, which is translated Jesus. So that Jesus means Yahweh of salvation as well. Note that there is a wordplay on the meaning of Jesus in the New Testament. You will give him the name Jesus because he will save his people from their sins. You will call him Yahweh is salvation because he will save his people from their sins. Literary setting, this continues the story of the Exodus right after Moses dies in Deuteronomy 34. The canonical setting, this begins in the Hebrew Bible what is called the Book of the Prophets. The Hebrew Bible has three major divisions: the Law, the Prophets, and the Writings. And the Prophets actually begin in the Hebrew Bible with Joshua. Joshua and Judges and Samuel and Kings are all considered prophetic books in the Hebrew Bible. Now at this point I should mention a critical hypothesis by the gentleman pictured on the left, Martin Noth. He was a German critical scholar, and in 1943 he coined a term that has been widely influential, the term Deuteronomistic history. The Deuteronomistic history theory holds that Deuteronomy is not so much the conclusion of the Pentateuch as it is the introduction to the historical books of Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. The author of the whole is said to be the Deuteronomist, DTR, who wrote during the Babylonian exile. Thus, in critical circles, they will speak of the Deuteronomistic history, sometimes abbreviated DH, that holds basically that Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and King constitute a single work produced under a single author editor. Now, a key term in that definition is modern. No ancient authors, nor anybody else before Martin Noth came along, had argued this way. But it has come to be widely accepted among critical scholars. Deuteronomy through Kings, and this, by the way, does not include the book of Ruth, which is in the writings in the Hebrew Bible, is then said to be one literary unit. And these books then were written, or at least edited, along the lines of Deuteronomy 28's theology. Deuteronomy 28 says that If you obey, you will be blessed. If you disobey, you will be cursed. And this history was written in order to show that when Israel obeyed, God blessed them. When Israel disobeyed, they were cursed and brought on the ultimate curse of Deuteronomy 28, exile from the land. So what are we to make of this theory? Well, there are positive elements of Notes theory, which makes me not simply dismiss it out of hand. There is clear influence of Deuteronomy in the books of Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. Moreover, Kings does clearly date into the exile. On the other hand, Notes theory can be criticized as well. It's not clear that a single author, DTR, wrote, or at least edited, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings. There could be many authors, many editors over time. Moreover, it's not clear that these books originally constituted a literary unity. I can't rule out that Joshua might have existed as a book before Judges, and Judges may have existed apart from Samuel, and that those that compiled the books of the canon did put them all together, and they do constitute a continuous history, but they may not have been originally written for that purpose, which is fundamental to Notes theory. The general purpose of the book of Joshua is to show that God began to fulfill the promise of land given to the patriarchs back in Genesis 12 and Genesis 15 and elsewhere. So it'll describe in chapters 1 through 12 the conquest. Then in chapters 13 through 21, they divide up the land among the tribes. Then in chapters 22 through 24, Joshua will say his farewells. There'll be a covenant renewal ceremony, and thus the book will end. So chapters 1 through 12 is the conquest section. Moses has died. Joshua has become the new leader. He's exhorted to be careful to obey the law of my servant Moses, which, by the way, assumes that Deuteronomy is a book that already exists, and meditate on it day and night, and to be strong and courageous, and to do his job. And so he takes up the task. He replaces Moses as the leader. He is told, as Deuteronomy says, not to fear or be dismayed, because God is going to be with them. And Joshua was chosen because of his experience. He had served as the attendant of Moses for the entire 40 years of the wilderness wanderings. He was actually up on Mount Sinai when Moses received the law. Didn't go all the way up, but went part way with Moses. He was also a man of faith who showed that in Book of Numbers at Kadesh Barnea, who along with Caleb had given the minority report, trusting in God. So again, they send spies into the land, spies who cross over the Jordan, go to Jericho, end up staying with a woman named Rahab, who was a prostitute. And she helps them and helps them to escape, and they promise to spare her when the invasion comes. And then the ark crosses the Jordan River in chapters 3 through 5. And as the priests' feet touch the water, the river dries up, very much like the miracle of the parting of the Red Sea, so that it makes that statement, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. In this case, God is even performing miracles similar to what he performed for Moses in the case of Joshua, parting or drying up, in this case, of the Jordan River, kind of like parting the Red Sea. And when they get over on the other side, all the men who had neglected the practice were circumcised, as a way of rededicating the whole country to obeying the covenant. But then there's a series of conquests, a central campaign that will start with Jericho and then go to Ai and go to Shechem, and then a southern campaign that will go down into what later becomes Judah, where they will encounter the Gibeonites. And then there will be a third campaign up north to Hatzor, near the Sea of Galilee. We will continue this on the next video.